Hello and welcome to
Wednesday's Night Out.
with your host Joseph, Turnpike Plaza 365 Rec Squad, developing the leader within you 2.0, all new for today's generation of leaders by John C. Maxwell, number one New York Times best-selling author. Chapter 9, The Price Tag of Leadership, Self-Discipline. President Harry S. Truman said, "In reading the lives of great men, I have found that the first victory they won was over themselves. Self-discipline with all of them came first. That is true, not just of great achievers, but also of effective leaders. Good leaders practice self-control before they try to engage others. Self-discipline comes before leadership success. It is the price tag of leadership. When I was in college, I studied Greek and Hebrew. One of the words for self-control in Greek is akratia. I think this word gives great insight into what someone needs to lead effectively. The word means to get a grip on oneself. It describes people who are willing to get a grip on their lives and take control of areas that will bring them success or failure. That's critical because I need to get a grip on me first before I try to get a handle on leading others. As leaders, our greatest challenge in leadership is leading ourselves first. We can't expect to take others farther than we have gone ourselves. We must travel within before we can travel without. Many highly gifted leaders have stopped far short of their potential because they were not willing to pay this price. They tried to take the first track to leadership only to find that shortcuts never pay off in the long run. Self-discipline makes leadership's uphill climb possible. There is a truth you need to recognize, not just for leadership, but for everything in life. For the last year or so, I have been teaching it extensively to people whenever I go. Ready? Here it is. Everything worthwhile is uphill. You may be saying, now that you've pointed it out, I can see that. Good. Okay, let's move on. What's next? But I want you to stop for a minute and think about this. Everything worthwhile is uphill. The word everything is inclusive. It's all encompassing. Pair that with worthwhile things that are desirable, appropriate, good for you, attractive, beneficial. So when you think about that, it's very significant. Anything and everything you desire in life, everything you would like to strive for, is uphill, meaning the pursuit of it is challenging, grueling, exhausting, strenuous, and difficult. The implications are simple. There are no such things as accidental achievements. No person who has climbed the mountain of success ever said, "I have no idea how I got to the top of this mountain. I just woke up one day and here I was. No leader who ever led people to do something significant did it without great effort. Any climb uphill must be deliberate, consistent, and willful. It is very intentional. The statement, everything worthwhile is uphill, not only describes life, but explains the reason self discipline is so essential for a successful life. And that's why I want to spend this chapter explaining some truths about self discipline. Because if you embrace them and act on them, you will be empowered to live an exciting uphill journey and you will be able to pay the price tag of leadership. So let's get started. 1. Self discipline enables you to go uphill. If you if I were to ask you, do you want to improve your life? Of course, your answer would be yes. The question isn't if you want it to happen. The question is, how do you make it happen? The answer is by living each day with intentional intention intentionality. That requires becoming self-disciplined. Self-discipline moves you from good intentions to good actions. It is what separates words and ideas from actual results. One of the greatest gaps in life is between sounding good and doing good. We are ultimately measuring we are ultimately measured by what we do and how our actions shape the world around us. Without results, all the best intentions in the world are just a way of, at best, entertaining ourselves, at worst, deluding ourselves. Self discipline paves the road to results. Do you know people who are always getting ready to get ready? Do you know people who start but never finish? I do too. They need to heed the advice of poet Edgar A. Guest, who wrote a poem called Keep Going. It says, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must quit. As a young leader, when I was highly focused on developing self-discipline, I would often think and talk about what I was going through. I felt the difficulty of the leadership task I was taking on. I felt the difficulty of making the uphill climb, and I wanted the people around me to know I was willing to pay the price to improve. Maybe back then I hoped I would come to a place where I didn't have to keep climbing. But that's not the way it works. Today I am still climbing, but the self-discipline needed no longer has the arduous feel of nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. I've matured under the weight of the journey. I imagine it to be like the conditioning developed by an experienced mountain climber, and my perspective has changed so that my focus isn't on what I'm going through, it's on what I'm going to. The top of the mountain calls to me and draws me upward. My friend Jim Whittaker has climbed the great mountains of the world. One day at lunch, he shared with me that his greatest accomplishment as a mountain climber was the number of people he had taken to the top with him. And he then gave me some climbing advice that I want to pass on to you. He said, "You never conquer the mountain, you only conquer yourself." That is the most important leadership journey each of us must take. Second, self discipline makes the difference between temporary success and sustained success. I want to add something important to my statement that everything worthwhile is uphill. Three words: all the way. Why is that significant? Anyone can climb for a short time. Nearly everyone does, at least once. But can you sustain it? Can you climb every day, day after day, year after year? I don't ask that to discourage you. I ask it because I want you to understand what it will take for you to reach your potential as a person and as a leader. That's why I say that the price tag of leadership is self-discipline. Brian Tracy wrote about a chance encounter he had with legendary success author Cope Meyer. When Tracy asked the author which was the most important of the thousands of success principles he discovered, Meyer answered, "The most important success principle of all was stated by Thomas Huxley many years ago. He said, do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not." Meyer went on to say, there are 999 other success principles that I have found in my reading and experience, but without self-discipline, none of them work. My friend Kevin Myers, pastor of 12 Stone Church, says it this way: everyone is looking for a quick fix, but what they really need is fitness. People who seek fixes stop doing what's right as soon as the pressure they feel is relieved. People who pursue fitness do what they should no matter what the circumstances are. Every day we face the decisions of whether we are going to pay the price tag of leadership. I like the way Rory Vaden looked at this issue in his book, Take the Stairs. He called it the pain paradox. Are we going to do what's easy and feels good in the short term, or are we going to do what's difficult and actually is good in the long term? Vaden said, we ask ourselves, should I go ahead and buy that item or just save my money for a rainy day? Should I have that extravagant desert or call it quits for the night? Should I put in the extra effort here or just get by with the minimum amount required? These questions Vaden said, reveal the pain paradox of decision making, which says the short term easy leads to the long term difficult, while the short term difficult leads to the long term easy. The great paradox is that what we thought was the easy way, what looks like the easy way, what seems like the easy way, very often leads us to creating a life that couldn't be more opposite of easy. And in verse and inversely, the things that we thought were most difficult, the challenges that are to be the toughest, and the requirements that seem most rigorous are the very activities that lead us to the life of easy that we all want. Vaden said, "The battle we fight is between our emotions, which typically have more power in the moment, and logic, which takes a longer view of life." That speaks to me because I have a sanguine personality, and it's very easy for me to live in the moment and to want to have fun. I discovered this early about myself, so I needed a strategy to help me focus on the long term and fight for future success. I wrote about my answer to that in my book, Today Matters. I'll give you the gist of the idea here. I identified 12 major decision areas for my life based on my values, and I made a well thought out, logical decision for each of them. I call these decisions my daily dozen because my goal is to make my daily in the moment decisions based on these 12 values. Just for today, I will choose and display the right attitude. Just for today, I will embrace and practice good values. Just for today, I will communicate with and care for my family. Just for today, I will know and follow healthy guidelines. Just for today, I will determine and act upon important priorities. Just for today, I will accept and show responsibility. Just for today, I will make and keep proper commitments. Just for today, I will initiate and invest in solid relationships. Just for today, I will earn and properly manage finances. Just for today, I will deepen and live out my faith. Just for today, I will desire and experience self improvement. Just for today, I will plan for and model generosity. Just for today, I will act on these decisions and practice these disciplines. Then one day, I will see the compounding results of a day lived well. When I feel the emotional pull to do what's not best for me, I choose to practice self discipline by doing these 12 things that are right for me. If I do them with consistency, then someday success in those areas will show up for me. The emphasis here is on consistency because consistency compounds. 3. Self-discipline makes habit your servant instead of your master. Every person has uphill hope and aspirations. We all have uphill dreams, but we also have a problem. Every one of us also has downhill habits, and those are often what keep us from making the self-discipline climb to higher ground. Why? Because habits have power over us. Take a look at this insightful piece written by Dennis P. Kimbrough that I came across several years ago. I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Have the things you do. You might just as well turn over to me, and I will be able to do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great people and allies of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of a human. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am a habit. The habits we have make us or break us. We choose which. Every leader faces two challenges. First, how can I turn my downhill habits into uphill habits? Second, how can I help the people I lead to change their downhill habits into uphill ones? So the question is, how can we turn downhill habits into uphill habits that serve us instead of enslave us? The first step in changing your habits is to change your thinking. If you can help others change their thinking, then you can help them change their habits too. What we think determines who we are. Who we are determines what we do. Bad thinking results in bad habits. Good thinking results in good habits. If I could do one thing for people, I would help them think in such a way that their choices would result in uphill habits. Uphill thinking is deliberate, consistent, and willful. Downhill thinking is unintentional, inconsistent, and wishy washy. Uphill thinking leads to uphill climbing. Downhill thinking leads to downhill sliding. Take a look at the difference. There's a two column grid, and at the top it says uphill climbing to the left, downhill climbing to the right. So uphill climbing, everything worthwhile. Downhill sliding, nothing worthwhile. Uphill climbing, winning, wins. Downhill sliding, losses. Uphill climbing, preparing. Downhill sliding, repairing. Uphill climbing, high morale. Downhill sliding, low morale. Uphill climbing, high self-respect. Downhill sliding, low self-respect. Uphill climbing, self-improvement. Downhill sliding, no improvement. Uphill climbing, purposeful. Downhill sliding, aimless. Uphill climbing, fulfilling. Downhill sliding, empty. Uphill climbing, making a difference. Downhill sliding, not making a difference. Uphill climbing, intentional actions, doing. Downhill sliding, good intentions, knowing. Uphill climbing, uphill habits. Downhill sliding, downhill habits. Let me explain how this often plays out. If I have a problem or a challenge and I think there is no positive solution, how will I respond? I'll probably procrastinate, or I might start making excuses for why I won't take action, because excuses are exit signs that take us off the road of progress. Sometimes the results are tragic, other times they're comical. For example, here are some excuses submitted in claims to auto insurance companies. As I reached the intersection, a hedge sprang up, obscuring my vision. Don't hate those instant hedges. An invisible car came out of nowhere, struck my car, and vanished like a superhero. The telephone pole was approaching fast. I attempted to swerve out of its path when it struck my front end. Those telephone poles have a mind of their own. They're so unpredictable. The indirect cause of this accident was a little guy in a small car with a big mouth. I can picture that one. I have been driving my car for 4 years when I fell asleep at the wheel and had an accident. That must be a record. To avoid hitting the bumper of the car in front of me, I struck the pedestrian. That's an interesting choice. I was on my way to the doctor's with rear end trouble when my universal joint gave way, causing me to have an accident. I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. If my thinking is negative, I develop the habits of procrastination and excuse making. But if my thinking is positive, I take responsibility and I take action. My thinking determines my habits. At the core of how we think is our overall attitude toward life. Many people think life should be easy. That thinking causes them to expect everything to come to them without effort. They watch and wait, hoping success will come and find them. It won't. We can settle and assume that everything will come to us, or we can take control of our lives and make things happen. If we don't take control of our lives, someone else will, and they may not want what we want for our lives. Dan Cathy, chairman and CEO of Chick-fil-A, recently shared with me that the rate of internal change must be faster than the rate of external change. That's the right way to think of it. Keep growing and changing on the inside, starting with your thinking, because self-discipline in the area of thinking will help you change from downhill habits to uphill hopes. The old wisdom is true, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. 4. Self-discipline is developed, not given. One of my favorite golf courses is at the Highlands Country Club in Highlands, North Carolina. It is the golf course that Bobby Jones played on for many years. In fact, he opened the fairways by hitting the first ball off the tee there in 1928. Bobby Jones was a golf prodigy who went on to become a legend. He began playing in 1907 at age 5. By age 12, he was scoring below par, an accomplishment most golfers don't achieve in a lifetime of playing the game. At 14, he qualified for the U.S. Amateur Championship. But Jones didn't win that event. His problem can be best described by the nickname he acquired. Club thrower, Jones often lost his temper and his ability to play well. And his temper was the thing that kept him from his true golf potential. Not anything related to his skill. Poor self-discipline had the potential to be his downfall. An old golfer whom Jones called Grandpa Bart had given up the game because of arthritis, but he still worked part-time in the pro shop. One day he told Jones, "Bobby, you are good enough to win that tournament, but you'll never win until you can control that temper of yours. You miss a shot, you get upset, and then you lose." Jones listened to the older man's advice and began working to discipline his emotions. At age 21, Jones blossomed and went on to be one of the greatest golfers in history. He retired after winning the Grand Slam of golf. He was only 28. Grandpa Bart's comment said it all. Bobby was 14 when he mastered the game of golf, but he was 21 when he mastered himself. Lack of discipline is the lid on many people's potential. That's the bad news. However, there's also good news. Self discipline is not something you have to be born with, it is something you can develop. It's earned, not given. In other words, if the lack of self discipline has been a lid for you, as it was for Bobby Jones, you can remove that lid. It is within your power. The first step to developing self-discipline is awareness. You need to see where you're falling short. Jones was fortunate that someone was willing to speak into his life and point out his problem. Not all of us are so lucky. We may need to seek out people who know us and are willing to tell us the truth. I want to give you 3 tips to help you develop self-discipline if this has been a difficult area for you. Self-disciplined people avoid temptation. Recently, during a time I was working hard to lose weight, my friend Tracy Morrow, who was coaching me, said, "John, the success of your diet is determined at the grocery store. Don't bring home food that is not good for you. Leave it on the shelves of the store, not on the shelves in your kitchen." People who develop self-discipline and positive habits don't put themselves in the line of fire. If they want to lose weight, they don't keep junk food in their desk drawers. If they're trying to stop spending money, they don't go hang out at the mall. They intentionally avoid temptation. Self-disciplined people know when to expand their energy. It is impossible to be at 100% all day, every day, and it's not necessary. Knowing when to be at 100% is essential to self-discipline. Why? Because you only have a certain amount of energy. You need to choose when to use it. Every day I look at my calendar and ask myself, when do I need to be at my best? After identifying those times, I then monitor my energy and effort to get the most out of myself during those crucial moments. I apply the energy required for me to practice self-discipline at those times when I need it the most. Gary Keller, founder of Keller Williams Realty, said, "Make sure every day you know what matters most." That's great advice. Think ahead and match up your energy to the things that matter most. Self-disciplined people understand and practice the principle of pay now, play later. There are 2 types of people in the area of discipline. One type puts off what needs to be done and plays now, preferring to avoid doing what he or she must. The other type pays now by doing the necessary, even if it's unpleasant, and is willing to defer fun and play later. The thing you need to know is that everybody pays. Whatever you put off until later always compounds. If you put off playing, you get to play more later. If you put off paying, you have to pay more later. There is no cheating in life. Intuitively, you know this is true. If you pay into your retirement funds and invest early in life, you have more money available to you in your older years. If you spend it all while you're young, in your old you won't be able to play in your old age. If you pay by eating right and exercising early, throughout your early life, your health will be better as you grow old. If you neglect those things, you will pay for it as you age. It's your choice. Recently, I shared with a group of students, if you only do what you want to do, you will never get to do what you really want to do. Self discipline is developed by saying yes when we want to say no, and saying no when we want to say yes. There are two types of pain in life: the pain of self discipline, which is eased by doing the right thing, and the pain of regret, which aches until we die. 5. Self discipline is most easily developed in areas of strength and passion. German playwright Karl Zuckmeyer said, "One half of life is luck, the other half is discipline." And that's the important half. For without discipline, you wouldn't know that to do with luck. Where do you find the discipline that leads to success? By doing the right thing every day. That right thing usually involves your strengths and your passion, what you love and what you're good at usually point you to your right thing. Self discipline always needs fuel. The strongest fuel comes from inspiration and motivation, which are usually connected with your strengths. What you do well usually inspires you and others, and motivation is a byproduct of your passion. If you love to do something, you're almost always motivated to do it. If you are focused on developing your self discipline in the areas of your strength and passion, the race of life feels easier to run, and you run it faster. If you are trying to develop discipline in areas where you are not gifted or passionate, the race feels long and arduous. Discipline fueled by your strength and passion is easier to convert into positive habits too. And even though you may not be great at anything you do for the first time, if the task is connected to your giftedness or passion, you will learn to do it well, quickly, and with a higher degree of skill. For years, I have spent most of my time developing self discipline in the areas of my strength because they complement my purpose. When I'm working within my why, my reason for being on this planet, I am able to remain motivated long after the first rush of enthusiasm and excited energy wears off. I guess you could call it why power. I can carry you forward when willpower is not enough. If the time, energy, and resources of your life are focused on areas not related to your strengths or passion, I want to encourage you to rethink what you're doing. Maybe it's time to quit something you don't do well to do something you do well. Quit something you're not passionate about to do something that fills you with passion. Quit something that doesn't make a difference to do something that does. Quit something that's not your dream to do something that is. If you change what you do, will it always be pleasant or easy? No, but everyone should say no to the good so they can say yes to the best. 6. Self discipline and respect are connected. For things built self respect the way self discipline does, author and speaker Brian Tracy said, disciplining yourself to do what you know is right and important, although difficult, is the high road to pride, self esteem, and personal satisfaction. Respect is the fruit of the disciplined life, both self respect and the respect of others. When talking about developing relationships with others, I've often said that respect is earned on difficult grounds, but we also earn self respect on difficult grounds. Self discipline is its own reward. There's two columns. On the left is discipline driven people. On to the right is emotional driven people. Discipline driven people do right, then feel good. Emotional driven people feel good, then do right. Discipline driven people are commitment driven. Emotional driven people are convenience driven. Discipline driven people make principle based decisions. Emotion driven people make popular based decisions. Discipline driven people, action controls attitude. Emotional driven people, attitude controls action. Discipline driven people believe it, then see it. Emotional driven people see it, then believe it. Discipline driven people create momentum. Emotional driven people wait for momentum. Discipline driven people ask, what are my responsibilities? Emotion driven people ask, what are my rights? Discipline driven people continue when problems arise. Emotional driven people quit when problems arise. Discipline driven people are steady. Emotional driven people are moody. Discipline driven people can be leaders. Emotional driven people will be followers. The late Louis L. Amour is one of the best selling authors of all time. More than 900 million copies of his books have been sold worldwide. And even though he died in 1988, every one of his books is still in print. When asked the key to his writing style, he responded, start writing no matter what. The water does not flow until the faucet is turned on. Turning the faucet on is the beginning. Respect is the result of keeping it on. Self-discipline allows you to do that. 7. Self-discipline makes consistency possible, and consistency compounds. Consistency is not a sexy word. Why? Consistency doesn't prove itself quickly, and it isn't rewarded immediately. In today's culture, people are more captivated by charisma, genius, excitement, creativity, and innovation. But I can tell you, after 50 years of striving for consistency, that dividends can be extraordinary. Here are just a few of the things consistency can do for you. Consistency establishes your reputation. Anybody can be good once in a while. Only the self-disciplined are consistently good. That consistency makes people notice you and respect and expect you to deliver. On August 6, 1999, with my son in law, Steve Miller, to Montreal, Canada, because of the reputation of someone who consistently delivered. His name was Tony Gwynn, an outfielder for the San Diego Padres, one of the greatest hitters, one of the greatest hitters ever to play Major League Baseball. Gwynn was on the verge of getting his 3,000th hit against the Expos. Only 30 players in the history of professional baseball have ever accomplished that feat. Nearly all of them are in the Hall of Fame. How did Tony accomplish this? One hit at a time, game after game, year after year. Consistency is a prerequisite to excellence. Anytime you try something for the first time, you won't be any good at it. That's just the way it is. So why try anything new? Because we all have to start somewhere. The first step is to master the basics. But then what? You don't just jump to excellence. The road to get there is consistency. Improvement is possible only through consistent practice. Consistency provides security to others. As, as leaders, one of the things we can prove to the people we lead is a sense of stability. Perhaps the highest compliment we can ever receive as leaders are the words, I can depend on you. When people see your consistency and know they can rely on you, it gives them a sense of security. Consistency reinforces your vision and values. Effective leadership is highly visual. Why? People do what people see. Leaders are models of behavior for those they lead. When team members see their leader doing something, they often follow in their footsteps, for good or ill. The leader cuts corners. They cut corners. The leaders show up late. They show up late. The leader performs only when he or she feels like it. They perform only when they feel like it. However, when the leader pays the price, shows up early, keeps promises, and delivers the goods consistently, then most of the people on the team strive to do likewise. Consistency compounds. I started speaking publicly in 1968. I made a commitment to train leaders in 1976. I started writing books in 1979, and I began developing and creating results in 1984. Each time I added another leadership objective, I didn't neglect the previous one. I kept working at it. I now look back and am surprised by what I've accomplished. I've spoken more than 12,000 times. My organizations have trained more than 5 million leaders from every country of the world. I've produced more than 100 books. My success has come because I started young. I've worked consistently. I'm now 70. That's the compounding potential of consistency. I can remember times when I was tempted to take shortcuts. When I was 23, I realized that I could wing it speaking instead of putting in the hard work of preparation before I added an audience, before I addressed an audience. I could have gotten away with taking this easy road. I wanted to take this easy road because it would have given me more time to do other things I wanted to do. But I knew deep down that it would be a mistake. If I relied on the talent I had to get me through, I would not be able to build on that talent and improve. So I did the work. That decision has paid off time after time over the years. Successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do only occasionally. The bookends of success are beginning well and ending well. What is between those bookends? Consistency. If you want to become the leader you have the potential to be, you need to pay the price of self discipline. One last word about self discipline before we move on to the last chapter. Most of the good leaders I know have a strong desire to help others. They want to invest in their team members. They want to they want to grow their organizations and they want to lead others to do something significant. You probably feel those desires too. You may have a strong pull to make a difference in this world. If so, there's something you need to know. Leaders are responsible to help themselves and make themselves better before they try to help others. If you've ever flown on an airplane, you've heard the safety instructions from the flight attendants. What do they say? Put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child or someone who may need your assistance. Why? Because it is impossible to help others effectively until you have first helped yourself. Self discipline is what enables you to do that. If there's one thing to fight for as a leader, this is it because it unlocks the door to so many other abilities, character, priorities, influence, and serving people. If you win the battle within, all the other victories become within reach. Developing the self disciplined person within you. Self discipline is not something you fight for once and say, whew, I'm glad that's over. It's something you need to keep working for day after day. But here's the good news. The more self-discipline battles you won, the less difficult the sequence battles you usually are. One victory builds upon another, and each discipline you do practice helps you with the others you desire to do. Start somewhere, get wins under your belt. As I mentioned in the chapter, self discipline isn't given, it must be developed by every individual who possesses it. If discipline is something you have neglected or struggled with in the past, you need to set yourself up for success with small victories. Try beginning in these areas. Avoid temptation. In what area of your life can you draw the line of safety far away from the point of temptation? Tracy coached me not to buy junk food when I was at the store so I wouldn't be tempted to eat the wrong foods at home. Where can you draw the line? Pay now, play later. Pick small, winnable tasks that you can do before rewarding yourself with fun or relaxation. Anytime you can delay gratification and practice self discipline, you've won. Let yourself feel good about it and use it to help you want to practice self discipline. Get back on the wagon. We all fail, and that can be discouraging. Don't allow a mistake or a lapse in discipline to make you give up. Acknowledge the failure, learn from it, identify temptations to avoid, and get back on the self discipline wagon. Develop discipline in your strengths. While you're creating or strengthening a strong foundation of discipline in your life, start building upon your strengths. What do you do well? What are your talents? What are you passionate about? How can you leverage these things for your life and your leadership? Pick one area of your life where winning comes more easily. Identify one discipline you could practice to strengthen that area. Plan it, schedule it, and do follow through consistently. Developing the Leader Within You 2.0, all new for today's generation of leaders by John C. Maxwell, #1 New York Times best-selling author. Turnpike Plaza, 365, Rec Squad.